Welcome back to the new small shop, everyone. As you can see here today, we're going to be working on a Stanley Bailey No. 4 hand plane. Even though it's dusty and dirty, you can see that it's not in bad shape. Everything seems to be there, and there's very minimal rust. So the first thing to do is to disassemble this hand plane, just to give everything a general inspection. Here I'm going to take apart the chip breaker and the plane iron. The chip breaker seems to be in pretty good shape, as does the iron. So now it's a matter of removing the frog. It doesn't look in bad shape. There's some rust on the lateral adjustment lever. I'm going to use some 400 grit sandpaper to remove the rust, and if you pause that, you can see that it does say Stanley there. Now to remove the handles. There's a crack in the handle. We'll fix that later. So overall, it's not in bad shape. You can see some rust there. It's very dirty. The sides look pretty clean and free of rust. Look at that price. Couldn't pass it up. So there's everything disassembled. Now we'll be moving on to the cleaning of it. Starting with the sole of the plane, I use an old toothbrush and some soapy water to give everything a nice scrub down. And before long, it doesn't look too bad. You can see the rust where the frog sits, and there's some rust where the paint's missing on the end of the plane. Not too bad. Now for the frog, same procedure. A little bit of elbow grease and some water and some soap. Here I get some 400 grit sandpaper and just go over the lateral adjustment lever. Make sure that it's all sanded down smooth. Clean all the rust off of that. Didn't turn out too bad. Now it's time to work on these screws that hold the handles on. A little sandpaper there cleans it up a little bit. I'm going to use a wire wheel to do a little refining. Not too bad. That's both of them done there. A little bit more polishing. We'll put those in later on. Didn't turn out too bad. Now this is the advancement knob. This advances and retracts the plane iron. A little bit with the wire wheel and some hand work. And a few minutes later, that cleans up fairly well. That didn't turn out too bad. Here you can see that the plane iron is not flat. So with some sandpaper and some elbow grease, we'll work on that. It's getting better, as you can see there. Not completely flat though. A little more work. And I suppose that's probably good enough. It's as close as I'm going to get it, I think. This is what the condition of the plane iron bevel looked like. It's not sharp. Here I'm spraying soap water onto my sandpaper. As you can see, it's hitting on the outside corners of the plane iron, not in the center, which means it's concaved in the center. If you look carefully, you can see that the concavity in the center is disappearing. Do you remember that crack in the handle? Well, we got to fix that. So the idea is to put the bottom of the handle in place, apply some glue, and then use the screw and the upper portion of the handle to clamp everything in place. Earlier I took time to make sure that the back of the plane iron was flat, and here you can see that the chip breaker is not flat, and in order for chips to not become bound in between the plane iron and the chip breaker edge needs to be flat as well. Just as I did with the back of the plane iron, I'm going to use some sandpaper here to start flattening the edge of the chip breaker. Here you can see it's only sanding the outside corners. It didn't take too long to make the edge of the chip breaker flat all the way across. Now there is no gap between the chip breaker and the back of the plane iron. You know you're getting close to the end when you can put everything back together. From this view, you can see that the frog needs to be advanced toward the mouth of the plane. This is accomplished by using the frog adjustment screw. If you look carefully, you can see the frog advancing toward the mouth of the plane body. The frog is in place, and now the frog screws can be fully tightened. Here I'm putting the depth adjustment knob back on, making sure that I have the adjustment yoke in the groove of the knob. The tote and the handle can go back on now. This is the lever cap screw. Now the chip breaker and plane iron. And finally, the lever cap. With the plane iron fully retracted, and the body of the plane under its normal operating tension, I'm going to start flattening the sole. That's about as flat as I'm going to make it. I don't think I'm going to work on it any more than that. Looks pretty good to me, so I'm going to call it good. In order to keep my tools from rusting, I like to use paste wax on all the bare metal surfaces. Well, there we have it, the Stanley Bailey No. 4 smoothing plane. As you can see, I wasn't trying to restore this to like new condition. My goal in purchasing this hand plane was to use it. So I focused on all of those things that were essential in getting this thing up and usable. Paul Sellers really loves his Stanley Bailey No. 4 hand planes. And as far as he's concerned, the Stanley Bailey No. 4 is the go-to plane for most hand planing work. So I was really happy to make this purchase. I'm glad with the way that this turned out. But we've got one more thing to do. Thanks for joining me on this semi-restoration project. I hope that you found it useful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the latest content. Thanks for watching.